up there? Right, if you're going to watch this video, I'll warn you now, you need to watch it with an open mind, which I'll wager is going to be easier for some people than others. Now, whenever I approach the subject of motorcycle touring, the comment section always lights up with references to certain motorcycle related channels here on YouTube, imploring me to watch them so that I can see how it should really be done. Contrary to what you might think, I don't spend an awful lot of time actually watching YouTube. I'm far too busy producing videos to, have the time to do that. Now, there are maybe 4 or 5 well-known channels that frequently, come into the conversation. And yeah, I've watched them in the past, occasionally, and all I see are egos. Now, they're not all the same, but for the most part, all you see are egos that are trying to prove how tough they are, how accomplished they are as riders, how far they can travel in a day, and how they fight tooth and nail to overcome the odds in the situation that they're in. Now, that is something that we all perhaps aspire to do one day, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But they're not really motorcycle touring. Well, they are, but at the same time, they aren't. Yes, they're using a motorcycle to travel to different destinations. But what is very different from what you're likely to ever be able to achieve is that they are presenting this as entertainment. It's got to be entertaining. And the type of personalities that are involved need to be proving something to you, the viewer. Something about their personalities and integrity, whether it's real or imagined. And one thing that a lot of these videos have in common is their uncanny resemblance to a certain TV series that was aired on British television in 2004. Starring Charlie Boorman and Ewan McGregor, The Long Way Round. This was a landmark television series, but it was a television series, portraying a journey that up until then had been reserved for small, relatively unknown motorcycle publications by intrepid motorcyclists who in some cases had circumnavigated the globe alone on a motorcycle. And in a way, as much as I really enjoyed The Long Way Round, it completely changed the concept of what motorcycle touring is. And in my opinion, not for the better. It wasn't really motorcycle touring, it was a motorcycle expedition with a huge backup team, costing hundreds of thousands of pounds, something that you and I are unlikely to ever be able to achieve. Right, are you ready for this? It's not real life. It's not reality. And to my mind, it confused the concept of what motorcycle touring is for a lot of modern motorcyclists. Motorcycle touring, for 99% of the people that are interested in the concept, is not about enduring hardship and overcoming obstacles. It's just a holiday that happens to be undertaken on a motorcycle as your mode of transport. A holiday is supposed to be a time of rest, a period of rest and recuperation away from your daily working life. It's supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable. Now, for most of us, when we go on holiday to, Spain, Portugal, Greece, or even Scotland, probably not France because it's full of French people, we don't turn it into an ordeal. We go there to relax, we go to sip drinks in the sun, indulge in the delights of the local cuisine, see the sights, relax and soak up the local atmosphere and culture. And the aim is to enjoy yourselves, have fun, and relinquish the stress, the strains, and the hassle of normal daily life. And for most motorcyclists, up until Charlie and Ewan did their thing, that was what a motorcycle touring holiday was all about. I'll give you an example. About 7 years ago I was talking to an acquaintance who had been on a motorcycle touring holiday with two friends who I also know and I had travelled with in the past, but abruptly put an end to that, and he explained to me exactly the same reasons that I'd stopped riding with them. Because these two guys had turned a 10-day European touring holiday into a regimental ordeal. The aim was not to visit places within a reasonable reach. The aim was to cover the maximum physical distance possible in the time that they had. And that involved days of 400 and 500 miles relentless riding regardless of weather, with no time for slackers and absolutely no possibility of changing the itinerary. He only vaguely remembered the places that he'd visited because he was so tired when he got there he didn't have his wits about him, and they spent such a little amount of time there that there wasn't really time to take it in. And he told me that it was the most miserable 10 days on a motorcycle he'd ever experienced. Now, this is the concept that was kicked off by Charlie and Ewan. In their case, I think they had something like 3 months to travel 20,000 miles, so they had to stick to a regime like that. It was important. Television and support crews are expensive, and you need to stick to a rigid timescale if you're not going to go over budget with your series. And unfortunately, standing where I'm standing, what seems to have happened is that social media has grasped onto that concept as being the benchmark of how a motorcycle tour is conducted, which in turn, to some extent, has influenced your average motorcyclist as to how he should conduct travelling on his motorcycle. I'll tell you now, unless there's something seriously wrong with your life, a motorcycle touring holiday does not have to be turned into a gentleman's sausage measuring competition in order for you to have an enjoyable time and come away from it relaxed with a sense of achievement. It's a real shame, but it seems to me nowadays that anyone who is contemplating a spot of motorcycle touring is put under an awful lot of pressure as to how they should go about it. Whether it's advice from social media or it's pressure from your mates as to what you should be riding and how you should go about planning your journey, it can end up removing a lot of enjoyment from your holiday by trying to conform to what other people tell you that you need to be doing. I do the odd little touring trip, as you know, and I'm constantly being told in the comments that it's not a proper tour because it was only 300 miles or 400 miles. I travel that far just to go for a cup of coffee. Now, all that tells me about the commenter is that he's got a very small gentleman's sausage and is trying very, very hard to compensate for it. The mark of a true man is his conviction to do what suits him and what fits in with his life, not to just follow whatever the head tells him is supposed to be doing. You do not need a huge capacity touring specific motorcycle costing 15, 20 or even £30,000 to do a motorcycle tour of any distance. You can tour on any motorcycle of any size that is accessible to you. It just needs to be roadworthy and reasonably reliable. And believe me, spending £20,000 on a motorcycle does not guarantee reliability. The lighter your motorcycle is, the better. It's all very well having a huge, big, fat, heavy touring bike that's great on the motorway, but it can become a real handful in stop-start traffic, narrow country lanes, or even just trying to park it up at your destination if parking spaces are at a premium. And performance-wise, the only criteria I would give is that it should be able to keep up with normal day-to-day traffic. I've done 1,200 mile tours 2 up, camping with luggage on a 12 horsepower 125. You do not need a large capacity bike to tour if you don't have access to one. A standard roadster of any capacity will do the job. Now, when it comes to carrying luggage, what you need to facilitate that is a bit like asking how long a piece of string is. That's going to depend on you, who's with you, what type of trip you're planning, whether you're camping or staying in a hotel, and how long you're going to be away for. But as I've proved on countless videos on this channel, you do not need to break the bank in order to have good quality luggage that will carry everything you need to carry with you. Luggage is a matter of personal choice. Now, how far you're prepared to travel on any given day is entirely up to you, but the best advice I can give you is to give yourself plenty of time. Do not set up a rigid, tight schedule for your journeys. Take into consideration the amount of time that you have available for your trip, whether it's a month, 2 weeks, a week, a weekend. Factor in what places you want to visit, the length of time you would like to spend at those places, and then from there work out how far you are prepared to comfortably travel to achieve your goals. It's far better to overestimate travelling time than cut it fine. Plan leisurely rides between destinations. Don't turn it into a race against the clock. If you turn up somewhere early, too early, you can factor in another destination and get more out of your experience. Or just spend more time at one of your planned destinations. What you can't do is create more time to make up for time lost. Cutting your timings too fine and creating a situation like that where you're behind schedule is just going to produce stress, which will then start to erode the pleasure of your journey. If your planned trip is going to take a week, factor in 2 rest days. If it's going to take 2 weeks, factor in 4 rest days. You don't have to be travelling non-stop day after day. That gives you the opportunity to get maximum enjoyment out of some of your destinations and relieve saddle sores if you're suffering from them. Now, you don't have to take these rest days if you don't want to. Factor them in, and then when it comes to it, if you feel like you want to do a little bit more on those days, again, you can just plan some additional journeys, but at least you've factored those options in if you need them. I would say the key to maximum enjoyment from a motorcycle touring holiday is quite simply not to bite off more than you can comfortably chew. Give yourself plenty of time to enjoy not just your destinations, but the experience of the ride. And planning your trip in that way, believe me, will give you lasting, detailed memories that will last for years. Rushed, hectic journeys tend to fade in the memory very quickly. All that tends to stick in your mind are the stressful parts. Now, last but not least, and I think this is probably one of the most important parts of any motorcycle tour, is travel companions. I personally much prefer the enjoyment of riding in solitude. I'm comfortable with my own company. I can go where I want, when I want, at whatever speed pleases me, and I don't have to worry about other people. That's my way of enjoying a motorcycle. If you're carrying a pillion, presumably this is going to be a partner or a very close friend that you know very well, so there isn't going to be any issues. Where the issues tend to creep in are when you're riding with other motorcyclists. Now, if this is a group of friends that you've ridden with for years, perhaps even since your youth, there isn't a problem. Again, you know who you're dealing with, you know what you're letting yourself in for. But there have been occasions where I've been invited to join groups. You quite often find situations where, they're planning quite a big trip and they're perhaps taking a cabin on a ferry or something like that, and they need one more member to the group to make up the numbers for the cabin so that it's cheaper for the rest of them, and that's really the only reason that you're being asked. If you find yourself in that situation, insist that you go on a couple of test runs first before doing any big journeys with these people. 2 or 3, coffee shop runs, something like that. If there is even one hothead in that group that rides off into the distance, expecting everyone else to keep up with him, walk away from it. It's a recipe for misery, not enjoyment. And if you do find that they're an okay bunch to ride with, sit down over a coffee and discuss with them what they expect from the journey and compare it to what you're looking for. If it doesn't suit you, even if they assure you that they'll accommodate you, again, I would consider just walking away from it, because as much as people will make promises, when you're 1,000 miles away from home a few days later and they've got a bit fed up of it and they're getting frustrated, it's going to cause tension, which again is a recipe for misery, not enjoyment. And certainly if it's a group that's going to sit down and tell you how it's going to be, laying down the law on what's expected of you as a member of the group, walk away from it. This is your holiday, not just their holiday. You're paying for your part of that excursion and you're entitled to get out of it what you want. You should all be on exactly the same page or it's not worth entering into it. Before I go, people keep mentioning to me other YouTube channels that I should watch to see what motorcycle travel is all about. I'm going to give you a suggestion, and it's a channel that has never ever been mentioned to me, but I believe it's one of the best channels on the tube. MotoGeo, hosted by Jamie Robinson. Jamie Robinson is a retired motorcycle championship rider. A man who has probably forgotten more about riding motorcycles than I'll ever know. He's down to earth, his presentation style is humble, and he's particularly skillful at conveying to the viewer the emotion and the feeling of riding a motorcycle. He has reviewed many motorcycles over the years, and it is a commercial channel, granted, but you can see that the guy, whether he's riding a 1200cc touring machine or a humble 125 commuter, he has love and enthusiasm for every motorcycle he encounters. His reviews are not sort of half-hour or 1-hour rides recounting facts, figures and dimensions. He takes the bikes on journeys. Some are long journeys, some are very short, just day trips. I found that his videos truly capture the essence and the emotion of motorcycle travel. And you'll come away from any of his videos with a far clearer picture of the experience that riding the motorcycle that he's reviewing will provide for you and what motorcycle travel is all about. And of course, it goes without saying, he is a Yorkshireman. Once again, thank you so much for watching this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful, and if you have, I would really appreciate it if you would consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Just little gestures that cost you nothing but really help me out. Now, I am of course going to be back next week, so until then, make the most of the weather because it's still holding up, or at least it is here in the UK. But above all else, ride safely. See you soon.